Welcome in, everybody, to a Monday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mac, fresh off an Easter weekend, a WrestleMania weekend, and the last weekend before the 2025 NFL Draft. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Monday morning, brother?
I'm doing well. Yeah, the Cody Rhodes era finally over for at least a short time, so I'm happy about that.
That was going to be my first question today. How was WrestleMania, Johnny?
I'm happy about that. Yesterday started off very well. Started off tremendous, and then people were unhappy with the main event. I don't know. People are so they just talk. You're talking about an older guy, Travis Scott, who. Not my cup of tea, but I do know he's a big fucking star. I do know that. And like people who don't know him are like, what is he doing there? So, that bothers me, but the end game was accomplished. And that's number 17 for John Cena, for those who care.
Okay. Rate WrestleMania from 1 to 10 for the weekend.
I'd say it's a solid 8.
Oh, that's pretty good. All right. That's pretty good. I didn't catch much of it just because it was Easter. So I had too much stuff going on all over the place. So I didn't catch
that's another thing. They get criticized for Easter. I'm like, look around. They're playing baseball, NBA play. They play everything on Easter. They have NFL games on Christmas. I mean, people like to complain for complaints' sake.
I do think it would hurt the ratings a little bit, but again, I don't make those decisions, and nor do I care enough to make those decisions. They do what they're going to do. They took the money. Sin City, Johnny Mac, bringing WrestleMania during Easter weekend.
Yeah, well, and they did it on purpose because it was an Easter week. They were trying to get people to travel to Las Vegas, and they accomplished that on Easter weekend. That was the goal.
Yeah,
that was the entire goal.
Of Easter, I hope everybody had a fantastic Easter weekend. I will say rest in peace to Pope Francis, who passed away this morning on Easter Monday, 7 a.m., I believe it was, in Italy time. So I will pray for the repose of his soul, but rest in peace to Pope Francis. Pretty interesting that he passed away this morning. We will pray for him. John, did you see that? Passes away on Monday after Easter. Pretty significant time of death, I would say.
I did. And obviously it's a sad situation for anyone in that type of situation. But, unfortunately, when you get to age, it can come at any time. And, that's one of those things that's part of life, unfortunately.
Yep, no doubt about it. Let's move into some Eagles. We're 4 days away, everybody, from the NFL Draft. 4 days away. John, one thing happened on Friday that we didn't get a chance to talk about on our Friday edition of Birds 365. We talked about the player. We didn't talk about the fact that he was in on a top 30 visit, and that's Walter Nolen. So it was reported last week, at the end of last week, that Walter Nolen was in on a top 30 visit. I believe it was Adam Kaplan. I'm not sure if you were able to confirm that, but I did think it was interesting because, we talked about that player a lot. And then I said on Friday, what the heck? They haven't even brought him in. Are we overrating the potential of Walter Nolen to Philly? Well, it does look like he was in on a top 30 visit, John, the last one that we've heard heading into the NFL Draft this week.
Yeah, I don't think we're overrating the interest in Walter Nolen. I think we're overrating the idea that'll get to where the Eagles can get him.
Right.
And I asked Daniel Jeremiah, so everyone probably saw his quote over the weekend. I'm the one who asked him about Walter Nolen potentially fall into the Eagles at 32, and or a little bit, earlier where they could do the targeted trade up. And he kind of just said, he might go top 15. And I think as you look at, you'll see some of the stuff coming out this morning. Adam Schefter put out and we'll talk about that in a second, but he put out his annual draft day intelligence. Bruce Feldman, who does a great job from the college side, he's the preeminent college football reporter, I would say, really, really talking about, and I'm glad Bruce put out his column today, just just devastating the quarterback classes from the NFL
Yeah.
eyes. So to me, I think it's becoming clearer and clearer. New Orleans isn't taking a quarterback in number 9. They're talking about trading back up to the top of the second round to get a quarterback there. So as things start to crystallize a little bit, I think you'll see that Walter Nolan's you got to make a big, bold move if you're going to get Walter Nolan. Excuse me. Now, Daniel also brought up, you asked him if Cooper DeJean would be there at 40 last year, he would have laughed at you. So Guy's ball, he said Nolan Smith as well. If you told him he was going to go at 30, he would have laughed at you.
Right.
So stranger things have happened, and there's these weird sort of concerns about Nolan off the field. Nothing serious, nothing like Jalen Carter-ish where you had this serious, but he transferred a bunch of times, and moved around. So people start to bubble up. Might even be the Eagles trying to get people to say, I don't want this kid. But yeah, if they were able to get Walter Nolan, that would be the most Eagles-y pick of the draft, as I always call it, when they get one of those types of players. No, I don't think anybody, to your original point, I don't think anybody around the team doubted they had interest on Walter Nolan, whether they brought him in or not. I think the idea is, how do you get him when you're starting at 32? And that's the difficult part.
Yeah, we'll see what ends up happening there. So that's the latest update on the Walter Nolan front. It was good to see that he was in on a top 30 visit. What will the Birds do in the NFL draft this week? John, the other thing that's kicking off is the offseason program kicks off today for the Philadelphia Eagles. For those who don't know, and I think there are a good amount of people, what does that exactly mean, Johnny Mac? The offseason program for the Eagles is kicking off today.
Well, it's the whole 9 weeks before the end of sort of mini camp, which is the signal of you have that little lull towards training camp in between mini camp and training camp. So this is the first day. Next 9 weeks, guys will be around. They'll be in the building. OTAs later in the process, mini camp, the last part of it. All of that is encompassed in the next 9 weeks, and today's the first day. You can start. Other teams have started with new coaches. They get a little bit of a head start, but this is the first day that the Eagles can report. Now, the first 2 weeks are just meetings and strength and conditioning and rehab and nothing on field or anything like that. So the OTAs don't start till May. They'll have a rookie mini camp after the draft. They can do that. And obviously they have 1 day of mini camp this year. So this is the start. This is the first day. And it's all voluntary except for mini camp, which is mandatory for the entire team. So guys will be in and out. But obviously all the young players, when they say voluntary, it's voluntary for the stars. The younger players damn well better show up. And some of the older guys, Fletcher Cox would often, he'd be in, pop his head in, pop his head out. And they kind of come and go as they please for the voluntary portion. But the Eagles generally have very good attendance, at least where everybody's going to be there for some part of it. And the veteran guys who have other things to do or want to be in other parts of the country, they'll tend to pop in when the media is there. Is generally how it works, but it all starts today.
Yep. So there's all voluntary. And then the one piece, they do have the mandatory mini camp, right? What date did you say that was, Johnny Mac? The one mandatory part of it this
I don't have it in front of me. I can look it up. June 9th or June 10th, somewhere around there.
A little bit later on in the offseason is when that mandatory one
comes. End of that 9 week period. Mini camp's the last thing you do.
Yeah. So some of the dates for those interested, the OTAs are divided into phases. Eagles will convene on field 6 times, May 27th and 28th, May 30th, June 2nd and 3rd, and June 5th. So there's your breakdown of the sessions that they will have this offseason. So pretty good. Later on in hour number 2, we're going to talk about some of the questions that we have for 2025, kind of retouching on them, the biggest questions of the offseason. Coming off of a Super Bowl is a lot different than not coming off of a Super Bowl. So the Eagles have obviously a different approach. You're losing Brandon Graham. Dallas Goedert, the question of Dallas Goedert still remains the Kevin Patullo conversation. I think that's been on the shelf for a little while. We will resurrect that a little bit and talk about that conversation of what he can do with the offense, and then obviously a bunch of positions that we have to fill as well. But John, it's draft week, brother. When is your mock draft coming out? I know you only do one, but boy, everybody waits for it, Johnny Mac.
Well, the full is coming out Wednesday. I'm going to talk to some people today and do my Eagles only mock draft. That'll come out either later today or tomorrow. Try to get as close as possible to get as much information as possible. And yeah, we'll see. I've had some success in my Eagles only mock draft, not because of me, because of other people pointing me in the right direction. So we'll see if we can get some of that information. Becomes more difficult because I think once you get some certain things,
right,
people lock it down even more. But we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out.
How are you feeling on the information barometer this year? You feeling like you got a lot in the Eagles or what?
Well, I got some really good information. Barron is another player that I think hasn't been talked about a lot. How do you pronounce his first name? Do we know? Jade Barron.
Yeah.
From Texas. I don't there's another guy. I don't see any way he makes it to even near the Eagles. But they like him a lot. And we've talked about the secondary as a whole and how much homework they've done on the secondary, which was a bit of a surprise to me coming into the process, to be honest. Knew you were going to see all that homework on the defensive front, which they've done. Offensive line, I still think it's far more likely that they go defensive front player first, whether that's a defensive tackle or an edge rusher, simply because there's more of those guys. And it's more likely playing the odds that one of those guys will fall to the Eagles or their purview, so to speak, where they can maybe get a targeted trade up and get them. But Nolan and Barron specifically are players they're very interested in, but I don't know how you go up and get them. I don't.
We'll see what they end up doing. A lot of options here in the draft, John. I do worry that. Well, I don't worry. It is what it is. But are they going? They might not even be making a pick on Thursday. Is that fair to? What would you put the percentage of them making a pick at on Thursday night?
I'm over 50. I think I'm starting to lean more towards partially talking to Daniel Jeremiah the other day. He said the same thing. And we said it. You said it on the show, I think on Friday. And Howie said it. And Jeffrey said it. You know, we like to zig when everybody else is zagging. So if everybody else wants to go down, which everybody else seems to want to go down, don't be surprised if the Eagles are leading the charge up. But only if they can get a player. And my problem with that is, like, who is that player other than Walter Nolen? Who is that player? And I don't see a lot of those guys. One of the few people I do listen to is Bill Polian, who's, gruff. Boy, he was great this morning on Sirius XM, explaining the draft process and all the bull, crap you hear. And he's obviously a Hall of Fame executive. And for those who don't know, but he's an old school guy. So he was fun to hear. But and he was talking about in a good year, as we've mentioned on the show, because I get it from people like Bill, maybe 20 real first round grades. Maybe. And a good
year. That sounds generous.
In a good year. Not this year. So, when you start to get in that range, unless one of your guys, And he points out that everybody's got a different board. Everybody's looking for different things. So there's no consensus board. You always see consensus boards. There's no consensus board. Quinyon Mitchell won 22 last year. He was a legitimate first-round grade for the Eagles. Howie was talking about it. We lucked out, basically. And he hates using that word, but he used it. He used that term, luck. So a lot of teams are looking to get out once you get past 20 because you have similar grades and they're not real first round. And the mentality is, why pay first round money for a second round player? So that's the mentality. In this case, the Eagles, so many people seem to want to move out that maybe they zig when everybody else zags. So I'll go slightly above 50%. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they traded down because they're going to have a group of players they want. And if they can't get them, Nolan would be one of them. Barron would be one of them. If they can't get them, it's just because you want somebody doesn't mean you can get them.
Right.
Then they'll reconsider and probably drop down, take a more safer pick, whatever it is, 39, 40.
Right.
But I'd say right now I'm a little bit over 50%.
So you're liking the idea of a potential targeted trade up for this Eagles team, John. If you think that they will do that, or you're feeling decent about the chance of them doing that, what players do come to mind that you think would be a top 3 or a top 5 player? I mean, there's a lot of players in this draft. Do you think there's a position group? Is there a certain player? Obviously, that's, the Eagles aren't going to give out all their information on player evaluation, but is there any way you're leaning if they are going to target it, trade up, and zig when everyone else zags?
Yeah, Nolan and Barron. And I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it. You got no, they're not going to go up. I don't think they're going to.
You don't think they're going to go up for Starks?
No. That's just my opinion. Just speculative. I mean, to me, they're going up to get somebody who they think is a real first round talent.
Right.
And I don't think I think Malachi's in that. So it's going to be a first round pick, probably. But he's, as Bill Polian was talking about, top 20, not that. He's not a real first round pick in the NFL's eyes. So yeah, I don't see that. Yeah, if he falls to him at 32 and they can't get out, yeah, I think it's very possible. But I don't see him, and that's my concern. I can't find a bunch of players other than Walter Nolen and Jahdae Barron that fit that category. And that includes the edge rushers, the offensive line they've shown interest in. Maybe Gray Zabel, but I haven't heard the Eagles talk about him that much. Yeah, I don't see a lot that fit that category. So you're almost hoping that, for whatever reason, people are concerned about Walter Nolan. He only had one successful year in college. He bailed on Texas A&M when he was the top recruit in the country, but of course, Jimbo Fisher got fired.
Yeah. Dumbo Fisher.
Well, he was the crown jewel of what was described as the greatest recruiting class in college football history. They had like 8 5-star players.
Yeah.
Texas A&M. And he was the best one. He was number 2 in the entire country to Travis Hunter. That's how good he was coming in. And he really didn't do much at Texas A&M.
Well, similar to what you say about the draft, though, you don't draft a finished product or a good or a bad player. It's the same thing in college. If you recruit a 5-star guy, you gotta have an environment that he can flourish in.
Yeah, exactly. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out. So that's part of it. Then the transfer portal, which everybody transfers out. Like, I don't know why that's a knock against players now.
It's certainly not going to be in the future. If it is right now, it's dwindling because, there's how many players are in the transfer portal right now?
It's ridiculous.
I mean, you're going to get to a point, John, where every player taken in the first round has transferred once in their career.
Oh,
I mean,
you almost are.
now.
It's it's all like, where's he from? And you got to say, well, if you want even back, Jalen Hurts, while he went to Alabama, then he went to Oklahoma. Even if you go back to Russell Wilson, while he went to North Carolina State, then he finished at Wisconsin. Even but now it's everybody. You got to look at where they were and how many schools they played at. Some guys play 4 or 5 different schools, and they just go from year to year to year to year. So I agree with you. I can't hold that against the kid, but who knows? But clearly, I think there's some teams, and the Eagles are probably in that group, that hope that people, again, same to Jalen Carter. The problem is, all right, Jalen Carter was the 9th pick in the draft, and the Eagles moved up a spot to make sure they got him. That there's very few teams. Chicago, you should be ashamed of himself. I say it all the time. You got to get Walter Nolen to 32 or 25, 26, wherever. And then you start thinking about moving up. Are that many teams going to pass on that kid? Boy. And that's what DJ said. He said, I find it hard to believe.
Right.
And we'll see. And this is exactly, I'll give you the whole answer. Because I asked him, Walter Nolen basically dropping to the Eagles. I would say it's unlikely that he falls that low. This is Jeremiah. He's just too explosive in a passing league. I can't see him getting there. But if you had to ask me if Nolan Smith would get there, I would have said no. If you would have asked me if Cooper DeJean was going to go there in the second round, I would have said no. You always prepare for it. You can always be pleasantly surprised if who falls. But I would not anticipate that he would drop that far. If he went in the top 15, I wouldn't be shocked. That one would surprise me if he made it all the way down there. That's, in this draft, he's one of the true first round players in a draft with not a lot.
Exactly.
So I don't know how everybody makes that mistake, but I don't have information on it. Maybe there's something more in his background. I have no idea. But I guarantee
I've heard people
know.
bring up like character concerns with Walter. No, I haven't seen much of them. What do those pertain to?
I have no idea. That's the point. I don't have
Same
that.
with James Pierce. I've seen the same thing. I'm like, is there something out there? Did something happen? Was there a legal issue?
There's like no what legal issue.
Yeah, there's no legal issue. I think it's just reporting on, I guess, the player's mentality. I'm not exactly sure.
And that's, he had 8 top 30 visits. I know that. So a lot of teams are kicking the tires and looking to answer questions. The Eagles among them. But Howie mentioned when he was talking about Dom, he's the best in the business at doing it. I'm sure the Eagles will take him. They're picking behind everybody. The 49ers looked at him, the Bengals looked at him, the Broncos looked at him, the Cardinals, the Cowboys, the Packers, the Panthers, at least that we know of. Are all of those teams, I find it very hard to believe. But stranger things have happened.
How many quarterbacks are going in round 1, John?
Boy, I was at 4 last week. Now I'm wavering.
You going down or you going up?
I'm going down. Because it seems like everybody wants to get up to the top of the second round.
Yeah.
Take guys. 2 or 3. The only 2 I will guarantee are going in the first round are Cam Ward and Jackson Dart.
Jackson Dart, you're guaranteeing in round 1?
Guaranteeing round 1.
Wow.
Shador, I am not guaranteeing round 1.
Jackson a freaking Dart in round 1.
I think it's pretty clear that Now, it's pretty clear. It's becoming pretty clear that the Saints aren't going to draft a quarterback at 9. And if that's the case, smart move, Kellen. Well done.
Right. Is that more about the quarterback class than it is about their own quarterback situation?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. You don't reach for somebody you don't really like at number 9 overall. And then, so you talk about Tyler Shuck, who I think the NFL likes a little bit more than people realize, than some of the other guys. But I don't think they like him enough to where he's a true first-round pick. And Shedeur, he's obviously it only takes one, but who is that one going to be? I think Pittsburgh likes Dart better. I think the Saints aren't taking him. So where's he going? Now, somebody could trade back in. Cleveland could trade back into the first round. That could mix all this up. A lot of teams want to trade out. So a lot of people can go up, but it seems like they're trying to go up to the top of the second round, not the first, which tells you a lot too, because they don't really care about the 50-year option.
Right.
So, but I brought up Bruce Feldman, who does his thing every year, where he speaks to a bunch of different coaches and personnel people around the league. And he got this quote. This is a doozy. This is such a bad quarterback class. I think they're all developmental guys. And then you got somebody talking about Jackson Dart being the second quarterback taken, which is growing around the league, that sentiment that he's going to be the second quarterback taken. And this was supposed to be a compliment about Jackson Dart being the second quarterback taken, but it's not a compliment. No knock on Shedeur, but Dart has a stronger arm, is a bigger man, has more mobility, which is the good part, and saying he's better than Shedeur. Now, here's the bad part. I see him as more of a polished Drew Lock.
What an upside for a first-round player.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, why would you take a player like that in the first round in the NFL draft at quarterback? So, I mean, this is a bad quarterback. And there's some guys draft guys I really respect who really get angry when you say it's a bad draft class, because everybody's got to be optimistic now. You can't, and that's how coaches coach. That's how personnel, they talk optimistically like that. They see that as a compliment. But I mean, first of all, we're talking about the top of the draft. And if you can't acknowledge the top of this draft is weak, I don't know what to tell you. And certainly the quarterback class is weak.
So would it be better for the Eagles, from an Eagles perspective? Would it be better for quarterbacks to go early, or would it be better if they started to slip a little bit? Because I think it might be better if actually they, if there's only Cam Ward taken in the top 10, and then you're like, ooh, does anybody want to move up? And then that could push more people, down the board, maybe for like the later.
Well, it doesn't. The more that go, the better for the Eagles. I mean, because then you're getting better players getting pushed down, and these guys don't belong in the first.
I guess it doesn't matter whether they go top 10 or top 20, as long as they go for the Eagles. Then you're pushing people down. A more polished Drew Lock. See, so here's where I go on Cam Ward with this conversation. I know Cam Ward is the best quarterback in the draft, and I'm not saying
he's not that good.
But here's what I'm saying: like, you're telling me that some of these other dudes you wouldn't even spend a first-round talent on, and I don't disagree with you, or a first-round pick on. You're going to spend the number 1 overall pick on Cam Ward. I think he's a first-rounder. But what's more value, Shedeur, let's say, at 21, or Jackson Dart at 21, or Cam at 1? I don't know.
Well, that's another thing Polian talked about. Like, he didn't give a shit about value. But I think that's a little bit unrealistic from the standpoint that that's not how all GMs believe. And certainly that's not how Howie believes. There is something to the value aspect of it. And in the case of quarterback, though, if you believe in the quarterback, like I said, one of the things when the Eagles would talk about, oh, yeah, we just missed on Russell Wilson. For years, they would talk about Russell Wilson this, Russell Wilson that, Russell. Dude, you missed on him in the third round. If you love him that much, take him in the second round.
Exactly.
And they learned from that, and they took Jalen Hurts in the second round, which has worked out for them. Because there isn't a lot of people who thought Jalen Hurts was going to the second round.
Yeah, I remember it was a surprise on draft night when it happened. I remember it.
I got the information early, and I said, this is not true. I did. I had it. And I believe I was
told this story. You hesitated to put it out there, didn't you? Yeah.
Yes. I was like, this makes no sense. And I only had a single source. And, sometimes you have to go with single source, but I tried to double source everything. But you can't double source draft picks in the moment. Or you can, but then you're behind everybody else.
Right.
And then by the time it's been, we're talking a minute early. And on draft, like not a lot of time.
Yeah, right. I know what you're saying. Yeah, like
not a lot of
legitimately
time.
right before it happened.
Yeah, and I did get it out before they took the pick. I don't know if I was first. I don't know how it worked, but I did get it out before I took the pick. And I said, "All right, this guy's trustworthy." But I looked at it and I said, "This cannot be possible. This cannot be possible." And it ended up being right, thank God, because that would have been embarrassing if it wasn't right. But anyway, I tell that story only to the point of they learned from Russell Wilson that said, all right, they could have waited to the third round, maybe even gotten him, but they didn't want to. And they learned from Russell Wilson. So to bring it back to Cam Ward, look, if the quarterback hits, should he go one? No. He's not the best player in this.
Yeah, right. But if he hits, who cares? Yeah.
Yeah. But if he hits and you believe in him and he's a good quarterback, who cares? Because the value of that position is going to be even higher than if you get a good quarterback, that means more than even if Abdul Carter turns into whatever, all pro, Travis Hunter turns into an all pro. They're the best players. Having a good quarterback, forget about a great quarterback. Having a good quarterback is more valuable than that.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Abdul Carter, as good as he is, he's not going to change a franchise around. Now, I don't think Cam Ward's the guy to do that either. I like Cam Ward, actually. I think he's got a decent, good arm, moves the ball downfield, decently mobile. I like some of the things, but I don't like him as a number one overall pick. But anyway, I digress. We'll see what ends up happening in the draft this week. Tons of players, tons of options out there, tons of different ways this thing can do. John, I've been following on the mock drafts, and honestly, I don't look at them like other people look at them. I kind of just view them to say, okay, who's taking what players where? What's the general consensus right now on certain players? I have seen some more names in round 2 that I think are likely or possible to fall. Where if the Eagles did want to move back, obviously you got to find a partner, but they're still going to be able to get a good player. Like I've seen a lot of Nick Scorton fall into the round 2. I've even seen like Shamar Stewart. I've seen Gray Zabel, who I think is a very Eagles pick if they wanted to move back a little bit for him. And then you mentioned at the top of round 2, if the quarterbacks fall, maybe that improves the Eagles' chances of being able to get a player. If a bunch of quarterbacks go at the start of round 2, maybe if they're able to move back a couple of spots or something like that. So I do think you're going to be able to get a good player. It's just all about which way the board falls this year.
Yeah, I should have mentioned Stewart's another guy that DJ Daniel Jeremiah mentioned as a potential of interest to the Eagles. I don't love the player because just he didn't produce.
Right.
He didn't produce at a really good program with a really good team and really good supporting cast around him. I'm not in love with the player, but he did mention him, so I should mention him. And he's very athletic, as we talked about during the combine. So he fits from the Eagles standpoint there. And the Eagles are very cognizant of developing players, and they're very good at developing players. And they're not one of the teams that thinks they draft a good player and that's it. They realize they have to develop these guys.
Right.
But I don't think he's the guy who's going to help you like right away, like day one. And maybe you're not going to get that player. But if you get Walter Nolen, you're getting that player. He's going to help you day one. Day one.
Right.
I don't see that with Shamar Stewart, but he did mention him, so I'll throw that name out there as well.
If the Eagles ended up, let's just say they get Walter Nolen. I don't know where it would be, but let's just say the Eagles end up with Walter Nolen, whether it's a trade up, a trade back, whatever it might be, or at 32. What does that mean for Jordan Davis, if anything? What does that mean for Moro Ojomo, if anything? How do you see that having ripple effects on the team as it sits today?
No impact on Jordan Davis, other than even less likely for the people that think, like, I should say no impact from my standpoint, but I understand what he is. There's a lot of people want him to develop and play more on third downs. So if you're one of those people, then it impacts him. But he's going to be a 2-down player, so it's not going to impact him. It'll impact Moro a lot.
Right. He'll fall back into that reserve role.
He'll fall back into what he was this year.
Right.
Because Nolan will be Melton Williams. That's
right.
That's the replacement, player for player. He'll be Melton Williams.
I think that would be a pretty damn good pick, man. Solidify that defensive line. Obviously, get another young defensive tackle in there next to Jalen Carter. I think that's a home run move. I've been saying that for a month, though. I really think that makes the most sense for this football team. But the other thing that is out there is, maybe Vic feels differently. And I'm not going to sit here and say I know more than Vic Fangio, for crying out loud. But he did just have the number 1 overall defense, John. He didn't have a dominant edge rusher on the team. He had good edge rushers. He didn't have a dominant edge rusher. Outside of Jalen Carter, that was his one dominant guy. So maybe Vic's like, I need to have my coverage locked down. I don't know, but I've heard people speculate that, and that's maybe where this interest in Malachi Starks is coming from, is Vic wants secondary players. Obviously, they brought in a bunch of corners as well, which I didn't anticipate them to do for the early rounds. How do you think Vic sees that? Like, do you think Vic looks at the defense and is like, I need to improve the defensive line? Or is it the opposite? I need competence on the defensive line, but I need a good secondary. What do you think Vic sees as more important specifically for this team right now in terms of, I don't want to say rebuilding, but retooling that defense?
Yeah, it's very important. In fact,
but defensive line or secondary, what do you think is more?
Oh, no. Well, defensive front is always first. But when I did talk to one of the people very close to the Eagles situation, what I got was what I do know, and this is him talking, not me. What I do know is that they've been hitting the secondary hard late in the process. The position coaches have been doing a ton of evaluations, looking for impact so they can maintain that elite coverage unit. And this is where I got Barron. Chade Barron and Starks are the only names I've heard from them. But I don't know what type of grade they have on them, so he doesn't know. But I've heard Barron to the Jets in the top 10. I don't know how that's even remotely possible. Starks obviously would be that the Eagles are where he should go, somewhere at the end of the first round.
Right.
So that to me is more realistic. But if it's an even grade, defensive front, offensive line as well, versus safety, they're taking the offensive lineman or defensive front player.
We'll see what they do. What do you think their ceiling is on a trade up, John? Like, do you think they would go not that high, right? Is it 26? Is it 20? Is it like, how high do you think they would realistically be willing to go if they did identify, I want to go get Walter Nolen?
20. If Walter fell, probably 24, somewhere in that range. I would say for other players, if they have interest in other players, maybe 27, 28.
Yeah.
You're not making these huge moves. And we'll talk about AJ. Top 10. Jesus Christ.
Oh, God. I forgot to bring that up. We got to bring that up, too. The AJ Brown stuff.
Jesus.
I mean, it's Easter weekend, and I'm getting notifications on my phone about AJ Brown being traded. I'm like, please, I don't have time for this right now. Stop.
Oh, my Lord. So anyway, yeah, they're not going up in the top 10. It takes way too much. And, you know, they don't have a lot of assets to get up into that realm, nor would they want to get up in that realm, because usually you're trying to go get a quarterback. And
right.
They don't need a quarterback, and there are no quarterbacks, even if they wanted a quarterback. So, but, you know, you know, when people, and like I said, I tweeted out yesterday, and Adam made it official today. And by the way, that's a joke, because anybody with any credence or who covers the Eagles has been telling you this for a long time. You're not getting traded. I don't care what some little birdie told some rando radio host in Boston. So, yeah, you know, if you really want to talk credibly about trades, and for most of these people, the end game is engagement, so they don't care. But for those who, I'm just talking about those fans want to be honest, want to understand what's going on, want to be objective about what's going on. Focus on the contracts before you start talking about the players.
Right. And we're not going to rage bait, engage bait you here. We're going to give you the truth, because here's where I think the conversation is realistic. People see the way the Eagles are built right now, and it's obviously a very expensive offense. They also see contracts that are coming up on the defense. If you're going to speculate, okay, where is their next cost cutting coming to in order to pay the defense? I think that's a realistic thought process and conversation. I don't think AJ Brown's going to be here forever, to be blunt. But where it's bullshit is that it's going to happen right now before the NFL draft. What's his dead cap?
John? They would lose if they traded pre-June 1st. They would lose $42 million in cap space. Right there, that's the end of the conversation.
Done. That doesn't even make sense.
That's it.
Your team gets worse and you
now,
lose $40
million?
I
get there's a lot of arcane rules in the NFL. A lot of people don't understand. We'll just make them post June 1st. You can't do that. You know, they would have to trade right now. They've already designated Darius Slay when they did that, James Bradbury when they did that. You only get 2. They did change a couple years ago. You can do trades post June 1st, but they're out of post June 1st designation. So if they trade them on draft night, they take a $42 million cap hit. Right there. End of discussion.
That doesn't sound like good business, everybody.
I think they have 12 million of cap space right now. I'll look it up on the NFLPA.
My question for anybody perpetrating or talking about these rumors, okay, is what is more valuable to the Eagles that they would trade or get back in a trade than losing their best player and $42 million? Like, this doesn't even make an inkling of sense.
I get it from the standpoint of that. Look, and again, this is where I said, if you want to talk about trades on, and maybe you don't want to, and that's fine. Maybe you want to have fun. Everybody, let people have fun. All right, go have fun. Go play fantasy football if that's what you want to do. But if you want to be honest and you want to understand what's going on and you want to be objective, that's why I said focus on the contracts before you start talking about the players. Because you can say, well, the Eagles run the ball anyway, so why do you need an all-pro wide receiver? All right, that makes some sense. They need an edge rusher. Abdul Carter's a great prospect, maybe the best prospect in the draft. That makes sense. You know, the Patriots need a wide receiver. That makes sense.
Right.
They're trying to help AJ. All that makes sense. So I get it from that stamp who don't understand the business part of it. And maybe you don't want to understand the business part of it. I get that too, because it's boring sometimes and it's not fun and blah, blah, blah. All right. But again, it's not realistic. It's not even remotely realistic. Now, I don't blame fans as much as I blame pseudo media people who pick up on this. And you can point out to who, I'm not going to bring up names, but you got the guy from, but there's also people here that pick up on it and try to further it. Is it for engagement or grifting people? I don't know. Maybe. Is it for they just don't understand? I don't know. Maybe. Either one's not good.
Stirring the pot too. People like to stir the pot and sit back and watch.
Either one's not. It's not good. If you want to be credible, if you don't want to be credible, who cares? I agree with that as well. But if you want to be credible, it's not realistic. Don't talk about it.
Right.
And hey, we're on this show, and I always try to say I try to educate people as much as possible. Some believe it, some don't. I don't give a shit. I could do a lot more and be more popular and do a lot of things if I said bullshit. I know that. People love it. It's not what I want to do.
Speaking of the great A.J. Brown, best receiver in Eagles have had in a very long time, maybe
best
ever.
Receiver in Eagles history.
And
they have Hall of Famers.
Speaking of him, though, John, he just tweeted out 7 minutes ago. It's 8:49 in the morning. 8 minutes ago now.
Come on.
8:41 a.m. He tweeted out, "Dear Philly, to whoever stole my car last night,
I'll no.
Bring back my car and I won't press charges. Or when I find you today, it's going to be what it's going to be.
Oh,
take
my
it or
Lord.
leave it, my guy." For the love of God, everybody, stop stealing people's cars, especially players, but anybody. What is going on with that?
Yeah, it is an epidemic. You know, if you live in Philadelphia, you're going to get your car stolen. And if you got a nice car, it's sad. But yeah, that happened to CJ. Jeez, come on. Yeah. I realize they don't realize it's an Eagles player most likely, but whew. Yeah, maybe all right.
I don't know much, so I don't want to, but like,
yeah, I don't know. I don't want to. I don't know what happened, but
I don't either. But like, isn't there a where is AJ keeping his car that it would get stolen? I guess it could just be sitting in his driveway. I mean, somebody, I just don't know. Like, again, I'm not trying to count pockets or anything, but like, doesn't AJ have the means to be able to, I don't know, put his car in a garage or something like that? Like, how the hell does his car?
He certainly does, but what if you're just driving around and somebody steals your car?
Yeah,
I'm sure. Yeah, he's got the means to do whatever he wants to keep it under armed guard 24/7. But these guys are human beings. They do go places.
Yeah, right. Maybe he went out to dinner in the city or something, and somebody swiped it.
Yeah, well, I would say don't steal anybody's car.
Yeah, I agree. That's the first thing I said. What are we stealing people's cars for? Thieves are going
to and the Tesla stuff and all that. I mean, I was taking my garbage out this morning and I saw a Tesla and I said, "Boy, that looks nice." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not buying that because somebody's going to key my car." I'm like, "Well, you got to worry about that shit." It's like it's insanity. Yeah, but anyway, maybe AJ will get traded because he doesn't want to be here because you're stealing this car.
Can you blame him for not liking living here if his car's getting stolen in the middle of the night, by the way, on the day after Easter or the day of Easter? I mean, come on, everybody. But I wanted to give that update because I just saw people commenting in the chat about it. I'm like, what do you mean AJ Brown's car got stolen? So I went over to his Twitter, and that's what he tweeted out. I don't know if he'll delete it or something, maybe, but yeah, don't do that. Don't do that. If you're a listener of Birds 365, don't be an asshole. Okay. We don't like assholes. And we want to, as John always says, educate the people, but we have a good listening base. So we appreciate that. Let's get to a couple super chats. Then we'll get to our first commercial break. JD3 checking in. What's up, brother? He says, J-Mac, Jay Uso sucks and Harrison Bryant, 2025 All-Pro NFC Offensive Player of the Year. Yeet.
We get a yeet for Jay Uso, who won the World Heavyweight Championship.
Did he win? He was going against who? Gunther?
Gunther, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you said you like Gunther. Were you upset at that one?
Yeah, I like Gunther. I'm not a big Jey Uso fan, but there's a lot of people that hate Jey Uso, but he's got an amazing sort of connection with the audience. So, there's a lot of wrestling nerds. I'm one of them, so I can say it, but they get way too mixed up on work rate, as it's called. Oh, what can he do in the ring versus guys who are over with the crowd? And I don't like Jey Uso, but he's over with the crowd.
No, he's good. Yeah, Triple H was channeling his inner Johnny Mac last week, John. He's just slashing down the trolls left and right. It's like, what should I do? Listen to the stadium of 20,000 people erupting or some troll on Twitter? I'm like, did Johnny Mac get on the phone with Triple H this week? What's going on? I thought that was pretty funny.
Well, I've spoken to him over the years, but yeah, I mean, that's the point. 125,000 people basically over 2 nights. And they're all going nuts for him. Yeah. And people are on Twitter saying, oh, he shouldn't be in the spot he is. Well, some of the other people who are great, in-ring performers can't get people engaged to do anything, can't do an interview, can't get people behind them. Yeah, they're not going to be successful.
Good stuff there. Let's go to Suo Blaze. What's up, Suo? He says, I'm all about Dylan Gabriel on day 3 for a backup. You heard John.
Yeah, I love Dylan Gabriel. He's the best quarterback in the draft. Just from playing the position, I always have to explain that contextually. He's undersized. He doesn't have NFL traits, but from understanding how to play the position, he's the best quarterback in this draft. And as a backup, on day 3, yeah, I'd take him. I don't think the Eagles are looking for a backup on day 3, but
you think they're going to draft a quarterback this year? What would you put the probability of that at?
I don't think they are.
I don't either. I don't think they need to. They got Dorian, they got Tanner. Now maybe
I don't trust either of those guys, but
I don't either. I don't either. But there is I don't know. Maybe they would trade Tanner. I had some guy who was mad at me, John. Yeah, I guess, I don't know. Someone brought up, trade Tanner for a 4th-round pick. And I said on the afternoon show, I'm like, guys, you're not getting a 4th-round pick for Tanner McKee. You'll be lucky to get a 6th-round pick. And some guy in the comments got so mad at me for saying that about Tanner McKee. I'm like, what is the infatuation with this guy, man? John, can you give clarity? What do you think the Eagles would get for Tanner McKee?
Why would they trade him? He's got to be their backup quarterback, unless you believe that much in Dorian. And you think these guys are interchangeable? Like, their whole plan is to make him the backup quarterback because he's had 2 years of development.
Right.
I've heard people say 2nd round. You can get a 2nd round pick for Tanner McKee. No, you can't. You might be able to get a conditional 4 if he plays well in the preseason again, and you can convince people and desperate people and say, well, this kid's got some upside, maybe we'll take a shot on him. And you put the condition on it from Howie's perspective. If he plays well, then it turns into something even better. So there's you can fool some people with quarterback versus other players. That part exists. They got a 2nd round pick for AJ Bealey back in the day because he had a couple good games, but he'd have to do it in the regular season and not week 18 because he played well in week 18. Not when everybody's sitting in a meaningful environment in the regular season to get into the AJ Bealey territory. But the Eagles want him to be the backup quarterback.
Yeah, by the way, I like Tanner McKee. I just don't think his trade value is what, people are out there thinking that he's, like a chess piece for us this year. To get what we want. I'm like, I don't really see him as that.
And here's the problem. If Dorian Thompson, because the Eagles like Dorian Thompson-Robinson more than Tanner McKee coming out, they weren't able to get him because Cleveland took him. Were they the same year? I don't know. They might have been 1 year off, but they liked Dorian Thompson-Robinson coming out the year he came out. I'd have to double check if the cross-reference that, but They liked him a lot.
Let's see. Tanner was 2023. So I'll look up Dorian Thompson. He was 2023 as well. Yep. Yeah. So he was a 5th round, 140th overall. Yeah. Tanner was 188 overall.
Yeah, and they like Thompson Robinson a lot. So, you know, if he comes in and plays well over the summer, and, you know, it wouldn't shock me if he's the backup, to be honest. But that's not going to help you with the trade value of Tanner McKee if he's losing to Dorian Thompson Robinson in training camp. But I don't expect that to happen. Things move quickly in the NFL. The Eagles like Tanner McKee. They traded Kenny Pickett because they think he's ready to be the backup quarterback.
I like McKee better than Pickett. I don't know if you do, but I do.
Well, again, it depends. Is he playing 17 games? I'd rather take a shot on Tanner McKee. Is he playing 2 games? I'd rather have Kenny Pickett.
Right, because he obviously has more experience, game experience. He can manage
to run the clean operation as Kellen Moore.
Exactly. Especially when you have this much talent on the Eagles. That's a big part of it, you know, because you gotta be able to work it in there and manage that. Josh B checks in. What's up, Josh B? Josh B won a giveaway last week. He wasn't here, but he did check in with me over the weekend. I saw your DM this morning, Josh B. I was off the phone for the weekend, all right? So I didn't see many of my DMs, but I will get back to all of you guys who reached out. Josh B., member for 5 months, says, the nonsense by these reporters on the AJ stuff is what's wrong with sports media. It's definitely growing, too.
Well, some guy on Boston radio is not a reporter. And even the guys on WA, they're not reporters, with the exception of Elliott. And I don't think Elliott said anything about it.
No, he didn't. I think honestly, I think everybody's has a little bit of fault. Like, you can be mad at the Boston radio guy, but like you just said, he's not a reporter. So he doesn't give a shit about reporting truth. He can speculate all the things that you said are true. The Eagles are in a cap crunch. The Eagles have a running game. The Eagles need an edge rusher. We need a wide receiver. Like, he can speculate that, but we're the ones who ate it up, and then people permeate it, and then people consume it, react, and respond to it. And that's where it all comes from.
Yeah. But, you know, the way he framed it, it was like he got some information, the Boston guy, which is complete and utter bullshit. I mean, it's complete bullshit.
Right.
And if you are a reporter, you know that. But I get that fans don't necessarily know it. But again, you look at the contract and say, all right, this is not this is literally not possible. You know, he could have checked that. It's public knowledge. But, you know.
Yeah, nobody wants to do that. Johnny Mac, good stuff. Good opening segment here as we prep for the NFL draft. 4 days out, everybody. Just a recap for you. Walter Nolen was in on a top 30 visit. We didn't have a chance to talk about that on Friday. Inside the Birds' Adam Kaplan put that out after the show. So he was in for a top 30 visit. The offseason program kicked off today. So the 9-week voluntary offseason program for the Philadelphia Eagles kicked off today. John, does that mean officially players, not everybody obviously, but players are down at the NovaCare complex, and the 2025-2026 season is kicked off and underway?
Yeah, players are down there. I would say the vast majority of players are down there.
Maybe AJ's not because his damn car was stolen.
Maybe he's got maybe AJ. Well, AJ's in the category of, you know, if he needs a day off and says, "Hey, my car got stolen," right, he can have a day off.
Yeah, but if he does miss today, we can't blame him entirely, all right? Because he might not have had a means of transportation after his car was stolen.
I'm sure he's got more than one car, but
yeah, but still, he's got to deal with the mayhem.
Yeah, that's a dick move, stealing somebody's car.
Dick move. It really is. I hate to see that. You know, it's the second time in the last 2 years or 3 years that
CJ got his. Yeah, CJ got his stolen. Yeah.
Dad says he has 20 cars. Bring out the Honda. Yeah, maybe that's why. Maybe he should have stuck to the Honda. It might not have gotten stolen last. I don't know what.
Well, that's another thing. You'll hear people say that, and I'm not picking up. He should be able to. You know, he's successful in life.
Yeah,
he should be able to drive whatever he wants to drive.
Agreed.
And people shouldn't be dicks. I don't think that's asking a lot.
I don't either. I don't either. I don't either. Law and order in society, John. It's a good thing. All right. Let's get to our first commercial break. We appreciate all you guys being here. Those were the updates, though. The A.J. Brown trade rumors. Johnny Mack squashed them, as he should. The Walter Nolen update and then the offseason program. We'll talk about more of those things. I do have a couple things that I think are important that we discuss as this offseason program kicks off. All right. There's a couple of questions out there on this 2025 team that we certainly have to be addressed. There are things that we've talked about a lot recently. There are things we haven't talked about recently. So we'll bring those up, and then we'll continue to dive into the NFL draft. No Jeff Kerr today. For those who listen in on Monday, we had a late cancellation from Jeff. He had something come up. So we'll get Jeff Kerr on tomorrow on Tuesday's edition of Birds 365. I know some people love that segment. So we will get Jeff up tomorrow. We apologize for the late cancellation from Jeff Kerr, but he's all good. Yeah, he does a lot for us, so we appreciate him. We'll be right back, everybody, on Birds 365 in 3 minutes.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.